What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. This is episode 2 of my brand new NBA podcast. If you like this video, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and like. Also, episode 1, which was published a few days ago. The support is much appreciated, and I thank you all for watching this. So, looking into these finals so far, been pretty crazy. The Nuggets, the Heat, the series is knotted at 1-1 right now, going into Game 3 at Miami on, I believe, Wednesday. You know, crazy things happening so far. Obviously, you look at Game 1 and Game 2, and they're almost completely different in terms of the adjustments, in terms of defense, how teams were playing. Just, two different teams is what I saw from Games 1 and 2. Looking to break that down, starting with Game 1, coming into a very hostile Denver environment. Miami is used to that, though. They're used to playing, like that. But Denver's crowd, they went crazy Game 1. It was one of the loudest games I've ever heard on TV. But I think the main highlight of that first game was simply the dominance of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Their two-man game has been just incredible. You see many people calling them the best duo in the playoffs, and I would have to agree. They've been absolutely incredible. Nobody was stopping their pick-and-roll game. Miami's defense, their pick-and-roll defense was trash, completely terrible. You saw Bam Adebayo kind of drop a little bit, leaving Murray so much room for, pull-up jumpers and floaters, and he killed them all night with that. Murray finished with 26, 6, and 10, 10 being the assists, 6 rebounds. Nikola Jokic with, of course, another triple-double with 27, 10, and 14. He could genuinely average between 12 and 15 assists if he really wanted to. If his teammates were getting, good looks, he will put this Nuggets team in the right spot to succeed. And he's shown that over and over throughout the playoffs, but especially in these finals, he's a one-of-one player. There's not many like Nikola Jokic. But looking at this game also, you see on the Heat side in Game 1, Bam Adebayo. And this guy is not typically an aggressive person. Bam, he doesn't take many shots. He takes the shots that he's given, but he doesn't really look for his own shot as much as he should, especially when he's got, smaller guys on him. And Bam's not the tallest guy in the world, but when he's got smaller matchups on him, he's got to take advantage. Bam put up 25 shots in Game 1. 25. That's crazy to me because that's just so unlike Bam Adebayo. He did put up 26, 13, and 5. Here's the thing, though. Most of his shots were just rushed. Nuggets did a fantastic job of forcing Bam into tough looks from the mid-range. Not clean, not good quality looks. They were just rushed. They were not efficient looks. And Bam knows that. And, I think he kind of felt pressure because Jimmy Butler wasn't having the greatest game. Jimmy Butler was looking very, very sluggish. With Aaron Gordon guarding him, he didn't, he looked very hesitant. Didn't know if he wanted to drive a lot. He didn't drive a lot on Aaron Gordon, but his pull-up jumpers weren't falling. His threes weren't falling. Butler had one of those weird, quiet Jimmy Butler games. Main storyline, though, and I have to put this at the top of the list for Game 1, is Caleb Martin and Max Strus were shockingly disappointing. I mean, you cannot expect to come into Denver and have Caleb Martin and Max Strus shoot 1 of 17 and expect to do anything. I'm surprised they only lost by 11 in Game 1, to be completely honest, because Caleb Martin and Max Strus are two guys who got you to the finals. If it wasn't for them, they would not be where they are. And, in a game where Jimmy Butler's having a Jimmy Butler quiet game, you need guys like Caleb Martin and Max Strus and Duncan Robinson and guys like that to step up and score the basketball. And they played horrible, could not make a shot. Caleb Martin was obviously in the starting lineup for Game 1. They switched that in Game 2, which I'll talk about later, and I loved that switch. That was very, very well done by Erik Spoelstra to switch Kevin Love into the starting lineup for height and defensive purposes, I guess. Even though Kevin Love's not the best defender, but he's a veteran. He knows the moment. Every time he's been in the playoffs, he's made it to the finals. This man knows He knows what the finals is like, and he knows how to play clutch basketball. But looking on, main storyline in this first game was how Nikola Jokic was able to dominate the game by not even scoring or looking to score. Nikola Jokic at halftime had 10 points, and he was 3 for 3. He took 3 shots in the first half, and they were up, like, I don't even know how much they were up at halftime, but they were winning, and the Nuggets were dominating the game. And it's pretty crazy to me how he's able to control the game and set people up and run that pick and roll so effectively, guys cutting back door. And that's what made it so tough for Miami, because Miami came out with a man defense, and they're very small. And this was a problem, coming into the series. I literally talked about this in last episode. I said, is Miami simply too small? Are they just not big enough to guard? And you could see in the first 4 minutes of this game, Aaron Gordon had like 12 points. And this was simply because of his matchups. He would get the ball. Nikola Jokic would find him in a great spot. He'd get the ball. Miami would send no help, and he would just back him down all the way and go right up over him. And he got off to a hot start. And when Aaron Gordon is doing that, you're in for a long night, because this isn't even Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic doing that. It's Aaron Gordon doing that. So a lot to look at there. But basically, Jokic and the Nuggets, they had, they had a counter. For every single thing Miami threw at them, they had a counter. And it's just extremely impressive to see that. A lot of people thought, well, after this game, this series could be over very quickly if Miami doesn't adjust, which I knew they would adjust, because look at their head coach. Obviously, they're going to find ways to make it tough on Jokic. But the pick and roll defense, like I said earlier, was atrocious. Miami's pick and roll defense was terrible. And that's what ultimately led Jamal Murray to, dominate the game the way he did. Only scoring 26, but still that was a very efficient 26. He came off screens, made floaters, made pull-ups, found open looks because guys would have to help. Just, doing that is going to be a problem if they couldn't get this fixed. Obviously, like I talked about, the Heat are at a massive size disadvantage. A lot of things, going against them in that department. Rebounding has been a struggle. Nikola Jokic stays on the boards. Man, they get so many offensive rebounds, and, Miami's got to do something about that. Miami is not a good rebounding team at all. But the Nuggets' defense was honestly one of the most surprising elements of this game, too. I mean, obviously, Caleb Martin and Max Strus are not going to shoot 1 for 17 every game. That's a rarity. You don't see that happening that often in the NBA, especially. But they were able to send help side defense off that pick and roll of Bam and Jimmy, and they were able to. Their rotations were good. They were playing aggressive. They were creating turnovers, getting steals, and when they're playing like that, there's nothing you can really do. They got good bench minutes. They run pretty much an 8-man lineup, but Bruce Brown obviously played really good. He got, into double figures off the bench, created some steals. Christian Brown, who is out of Kansas, the rookie, he played an extremely well game too. He created a lot of turnovers, a lot of steals, had a dunk, was making tough step backs. He played really, really good in the time where the Nuggets needed it. But that's really all you can say about Game 1. The final score was 104-93. Game 1, went just about how I expected it would. I expected the Nuggets would come out, take care of home court. But, everybody knows in the NBA, Game 1s do not mean that much, because this is your first time seeing this, team. It's a long series. And some people even said that about, Jimmy Butler. People said, well, this was just Jimmy feeling the game out. He'll come out in Game 2 and drop 50 and they'll win. He was just feeling this team out, seeing, what he was able to do. Another thing, though, I want to talk about is this Heat zone defense, which they actually did bring out in the fourth quarter of Game 1. And it actually worked. It's a 1-3-1 zone. It kind of forces Jokic into tough spots. Obviously, it's not going to stop him. Nothing really can stop him, I don't think. But it forces him into tough decisions of where he wants to shoot it. Obviously, I've talked about it in the past. He's a very pass-first center. He's a very unselfish player. So when you look at, this zone defense the Heat run, it's kind of puts Jokic in a tough position. Obviously, it didn't really matter at that point in the game. They were already down like 20 points going into the fourth quarter. But it's worth noting that Miami went to this defense, and it actually worked. They actually went on a little bit of a run. That's why the game probably finished only 11 points was the result. Could have been a lot more, though. Could have been much more than that. But like I said, game one kind of ended in a way that everybody is thinking Nuggets in 5, Nuggets in 6. I don't see how anybody's stopping this team. All that. But then game 2 rolls around, and there's so much to say about game 2. Obviously, the Heat come out. Max Strus plays like a completely different player. But they make that change. They make that little adjustment of bringing Kevin Love into the starting lineup in game 2, and it worked to perfection. Got some defense in there. He was able to create turnovers. He took some charges. This was a huge way. And now, not only did this help defensive and rebounding purposes, but this also allowed Jimmy Butler to guard Jamal Murray. And he did a fantastic job on Jamal Murray in game 2. Jamal Murray did not know what to do. He looked very uncomfortable out there in game 2. He did not have a good game 2. Pretty much the only player that did was Nikola Jokic. And, Jokic obviously had an unbelievable game, 41 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. However, I don't believe Jokic having these kind of games is what Denver wants at all. In fact, I know it's not what they want. They are 0-3 when Jokic scores 40+. They are 0-3 in these playoffs when the Jokic scores 40+. So that's worth noting. You think about he dropped 53 against Phoenix in game 4. And you see what happened there. Phoenix still won. When Jokic is not passing, he had 4 assists. When Jokic has 4 assists, the team isn't scoring because he's obviously going to look to pass. Now, he did take quite a few shots. I believe he took 28 shots in game 2. But that's just unlike Jokic. Let's see. He went 16 for 28. That's very efficient. That's, not many people, would complain with 16 for 28, but you got to think about Jamal Murray. He off that pick and roll, it was different this time. Off the pick and roll in game 2, the Heat blitzed right to Jamal Murray. They would send a help defender to come guard Jokic, and they would force somebody else to beat them. And that is, of course, Eric Spoelstra would decide to do that. It was very smart play calling by him to do this because of the game Michael Porter Jr. had. He played terrible. He finished the game with 5 points, 2 for 8 shooting, took some terrible shots, took contested shots. Stuff that, Michael Porter, you don't do that. I don't understand why in his head he would, take some of the shots he takes. He passes up open looks sometimes, and then he'll take step back, contested shots. And I just, I don't really understand that at all. But they really need someone else to step up in times like that where it's just Jokic. And, throughout the whole game I was watching, and I was just like, is someone else going to play good? Is someone else going to help Jokic out and, do anything when Jamal Murray's being clamped by Butler and Caleb Martin? But like I said, it was a much better pick and roll defense for Miami. Attacked Murray, and they sent help to Jokic. But again, I don't know where Michael Porter Jr. was. 5 points is unacceptable. Same with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He dropped 6 points. And, it's unacceptable. You can't expect to win finals games when you have key guys in your starting lineup dropping single digits. Not saying that everybody in your starting lineup has to score 15 plus, but you got to balance it out a little bit. That's one reason why I think Phoenix struggled is because they relied on 2 guys to drop 40 plus, and that's just not how you win finals games. You look at the Heat side, you had 3 guys going for 20 plus, and then you had a guy in Max Strus going for 14, and Max Strus, completely different player. Completely different player. He dropped like 4 threes in the first 5 minutes of the game, and the Heat go out to this huge lead. But then all of a sudden a switch got flipped, and then all of a sudden the Heat are now down. Denver goes on this humongous run. But the thing about Miami is they never give up. They will never give up. They keep, staying within the range. And, they end up going down by 6 at halftime. And a lot could have changed because now this is an actual series. I thought when I watched that first half, I said Denver's going to get game 2, and then a lot of pressure is going to be on Miami in games 3 and 4. But was completely wrong because, they come out in the third quarter and fourth quarter and they dominated. Gabe Vincent is truly playing like a finals MVP. If the series ended right now and Miami had to pick a finals MVP, it'd be Gabe Vincent. He dropped 23 with on 8 of 12 shooting. That's, super efficient numbers. You shoot 75%. No one's going to complain with that, especially at the level Gabe Vincent's playing. He's creating turnovers, making plays for his team. He's a guy that can handle the ball coming up the court, helping Jimmy out. But it is worth noting, 100% worth noting that in this game 2, you could see Miami would go on slumps. You could see where they would go on times where you don't know if they're going to score the ball. I mean, they would go 5 minutes and there'd be some free throws, maybe a layup, maybe a tough Jimmy Butler bucket. No one else was scoring. These are the moments where you think about Tyler Hero coming back. Should be back for game 3. I don't know. He was warming up in game 2. They obviously ruled him out. But you think about moments like that and you're like, man, Tyler Hero could come in and make a difference. But then you also think about what if he messes with the chemistry? And there's so many things that could, be talked about there. But here's the thing. If you have a healthy Tyler Hero, you have to play him. There's no worrying about the chemistry. There's no anything like that. Tyler Hero is a phenomenal basketball player, especially on the offensive end. He's a guy that can come in, give you 20 points, knock down clutch baskets in crucial moments. You need him on the court if he's healthy. I say game 3 rolls around. If he's healthy, you bring him off the bench, see what he can do. I don't think anybody is going to obviously many people are concerned. They're saying, well, you would hate to mess up the flow. You would hate to mess up, how the Heat have been playing. But it's Tyler Hero at the end of the day. I think, you need this kind of offensive guy to come in and help you out, lift the pressure off of Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. This would be huge for the Heat. Absolutely huge. And you look at Bam, by the way, talking about Bam Adebayo in game 2, he looked like a different player. Obviously, he's had 2 good games. He's had a phenomenal finals. That's no doubt. He dropped, 26 in game 1, and then, he comes out game 2 and drops 21, but he was much more efficient in game 2. He was much more efficient, shooting 8 of 14. So you look at that, and you look at Jimmy Butler, who also dropped 21, and you look at Gabe Vincent dropping 23, and the way of scoring is much more balanced for Miami, and that's huge for any finals team. You want your scoring to be balanced. You don't want everybody scoring at one time, and it makes me think I'm worried for the Denver Nuggets because after last night and seeing how the Heat zone defense worked so well against this Denver team. Now, not saying Michael Porter Jr. is going to have a game like he did last night every night. There's nights where he comes out and he's, not missing from 3 and he's scoring, he's driving, but there's some nights, and most nights, unfortunately, he comes out and he plays like he did last night, not being aggressive, taking terrible shots, forcing shots. It was bad. It was bad what I saw from Michael Porter Jr. But, you look at what Mike Malone said in the press conference after game 2, it was the lack of effort, and it really was. In that fourth quarter, the Nuggets showed 0 effort. The Heat completely outworked them, and it came down to the wire. This was a fantastic game 2, obviously. It came down to the very end. Controversial, though, on Mike Malone's part. He decides, Jimmy Butler takes a step back 3 down. They're up 3 at this point. He misses the shot. Nuggets get the ball with like 20 seconds left. Or maybe not 20. Maybe like 15. 15 seconds left, and then they dribble down the court, and then you think, man, they have 2 timeouts. You sure you're not going to use one? He decides not to use one. You're down 3. Murray takes a forced step back 3 on Jimmy Butler and obviously misses. It was a good shot. It looked good. I honestly thought it was going in. But, in that moment, I think you should have called timeout, get a good play to, get one of your best guys open. Probably would have gone to Murray regardless because I believe he's built for those kind of moments. But seeing that didn't go in, and I knew if the Heat had blew that game, the series was over. To go into Denver, first Denver loss at home in the playoffs is pretty crazy. This Heat team just continues to do it. There's so many people that are just, like, oh my gosh, these Nuggets, there's nobody that's going to beat them. Now the Heat have literally regained home court advantage. They go into games 3 and 4 at Miami where they have been so solid. They have been so solid at home. They play different at home. Their role players play different. And you're about to add a guy like Tyler Hero back into the lineup. Now, I will say, I watched Tyler Hero in warm-ups. I think ESPN posted a little clip of him warming up. He didn't look great. His handle was kind of slow. Obviously his issue is he has a right hand injury. He broke his hand. That's a hard injury to come back from because you don't feel comfortable, moving that hand. You don't feel comfortable, dribbling, and it's the finals. Your handles have to be tight. You got guys like Bruce Brown and KCP, very aggressive defenders. They do a fantastic job, like Christian Brown too. Very, very aggressive defenders that like to force steals, like to poke the ball loose and stuff like that. And you need guys with good ball handling. There were several times. I think Christian Brown got like 3 steals in a row. I think Kyle Lowry and, people like that who, and it's another thing about Kyle Lowry is he makes some really questionable decisions. Obviously he's that veteran, he's the veteran that you need in the locker room, settling guys down. He makes good looks. Obviously he runs the pick and roll to perfection with Bam, and Bam was hitting his mid-range shots. He looked comfortable for some reason. Don't know why. Bam usually does not do this. In Game 7 of the Boston series, he looked terrible. But he comes out in this matchup, and he has played great. Much better than Anthony Davis played. Much better than DeAndre Ayton played. Much better than Karl Anthony Towns played. It's all... And, Bam isn't the kind of center they are. Bam's a defensive-first center, but when he gets the ball, he's looking for his shots. He's getting good shots. I'm very proud of the way Bam played in Game 2. There's so many things, though, to look at going into this games 3 and 4. I can't wait to see what all happens in games 3 and 4. The adjustments made by Mike Malone. I believe the Heat should keep doing what they're doing. I believe the Heat should keep trying to force Jokic into... I think they should run that 1-3-1 zone. I believe it works, but I believe the Heat should keep forcing Jokic to, maybe, yes, we'll live if Jokic goes for 35 plus, but as long as no one else does and no one else, you see Denver's losing when that happens. You see that, when Jokic has a big, huge game and nobody else does, they lose. So clearly it's in the Heat favor if they shut off that pick and roll with Jamal Murray. Do not allow Jamal Murray to come off the pick and roll and have free access to floaters and pull up mid-range jumpers. And, they send help to defend Jokic, and they force someone else. They're forcing Michael Porter. They're forcing Aaron Gordon. They're forcing KCP, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, those kind of guys. They're forcing them to beat you on the offensive side of the ball. And, that strategy honestly works because they come out in Game 2 and played horrible, and that's at their home court, and, going back to Miami, it's tough. That's going to be a tough place to play games 3 and 4. And then you got to think a lot about Miami's pretty solid at home. They get games 3 and 4 and they, it's 3-1 now. I don't know. A lot of things to think about there. A lot of excitement heading into these next set of games. Obviously, my next podcast will be after Game 4 to review what we see at Miami. But like I said earlier, 2 completely different teams, looking at Miami's team in Game 1 versus Game 2. And, of course, I honestly believe that every Game 1 in every series is kind of a feel-out game, seeing, what adjustments can I make for Game 2, who's doing this, what matchup is good here, what kind of defense are we going to run, stuff like that. And I think the Nuggets kind of fell apart in Game 2. I think their energy was a lot higher in Game 1. They were a lot more aggressive on the defensive end, forcing, Bam and Jimmy into tough shots, but yesterday it just seemed like the Heat were just, getting whatever they wanted. They were attacking a lot more, creating wide open looks for people like Gabe Vincent. Duncan Robinson came alive in the fourth quarter. I forgot to mention this. He came alive in the fourth quarter, dropped, I think he finished with like 10 points. I want to make sure before I'm wrong. Yeah, he dropped 10 points, but on 4 or 5 shooting, but that was really all in the fourth quarter. I mean, he came out, he was driving to the basket. Obviously, he has those pull-up threes in his bag. He's done that ever since he's been into the league, but he was driving the ball, mean mugging guys, all that. He was a whole nother level of confidence that I haven't seen out of Duncan Robinson. So it was good to see that. But so much to look for games 3 and 4. And honestly, I can't wait to see what all happens there. In other news, though, around the NBA, I should probably mention this because it's going around literally everywhere, of Kyrie Irving deciding to contact LeBron James in hopes that LeBron becomes a Maverick. Very interesting. So many things behind that. Trying to form a big three with Luka, him, and LeBron. I don't see that happening at all. I don't see LeBron going to Dallas. I honestly could see Kyrie going to LA more than I could LeBron going to Dallas. But just thought I'd throw that out there also because it's going around, so we'll see what happens there. But right now the focus is these finals, Nikola Jokic, Jimmy Butler. So many things to look at going into games 3 and 4, and I can't wait till we get there. Obviously, game 3 is Wednesday, and I believe game 4 is, I want to say it's Friday. I think game 4 is Friday. So I'll be back after those games talking about what happened. A lot, these are crucial games in these finals. And I don't know why everybody's been saying, there's been a lot of talk that, well, this finals is not as, hype as, some of the others in the past with like LeBron and Curry. There's no big names. And if you're a true basketball fan, you appreciate good basketball. These are amazing finals. So that's what I'm looking at. I can't wait for game 3. It's going to be really interesting to see the adjustments Michael Malone makes to what the Heat have done with Nikola Jokic and trying to force other guys to beat them. And it's going to be interesting to see what Spo does about Nikola Jokic. Obviously, you never want a guy dropping 40 points consistently, but in this case, you might want it because every time he does it, they've lost in these playoffs. So that's a thing to look at. Obviously, Jimmy Butler, got to keep playing good, got to have one of, keep playing aggressive, can't have one of those Jimmy games. And then obviously Caleb Martin, a little bit of a struggling trend. I know he's been sick, but he's been on a little struggle bus the last 2 games. Hopefully he picks it up at home. And then obviously very overarching, storyline is how is Tyler Hero going to look and how is he going to fit in? Is he going to help the Heat or is he going to hurt the Heat? There's a lot to be said. We'll all see that unfold in games 3 and 4, but that is it for this episode, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I will be back after game 4, probably around Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure yet what it's looking like, but again, thank you guys for watching. I'll be back after game 4. I can't wait to see what happens. So, appreciate it, guys.